And what is up, YouTube? My name is G3Irony, and today we are taking a look at the Synthesis League meta overview. 3 weeks into the league, we're going to be looking at the popularity of both classes as well as passive nodes and particular skills in both hardcore and softcore Synthesis League today. If you like the video, be sure to give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe, and make sure you ding the bell to be notified about future videos just like this one. If at any point throughout the discussion you'd like to jump ahead or revisit any of the topics that we are chatting about, a convenient timestamp has been placed above my slightly balding head for every different discussion point that we have today, and those are hot linked, of course, down below in the video description for your convenience. So let's jump right in and take a look at the softcore class pyramid meta right now. This is just a really simple breakdown of what's popular in softcore synthesis. Coming in the top spot is the Occultist at 27%, with Trickster taking the second spot at 20%. Then Elementalist at 15%. Then we've got a little bit of a grouping with the Inquisitor, the Juggernaut, Ascendant, and Deadeye coming in at 7, 5, and 4 and 4% respectively in terms of popularity. And then you've got everything else. So 3% and below includes the Saboteur, the Pathfinder, Assassin, Necromancer, Hierophant, and of course all of those other classes that are melee classes primarily, like the Champion, Gladiator, Slayer, and Berserker. All of those classes are hopefully going to be getting buffs and changes in 3.7 with all of the melee updates and changes, just like what they've done with synthesis for spells in 3.6. But for now, they're very clearly at the bottom of the pyramid in terms of their popularity in softcore, with Occultist and really Witch dominating. When you put all three ascendancies together for the Witch, 2% from the Necromancer, Elementalist coming in with 15%, and Occultist coming in at 27%, which is just an incredibly popular class across the board right now. You pretty much can't go wrong if you're playing a Witch. So if you find an item that is in any way, shape, or form relevant to Summoner playstyles, to Occultist playstyles, cold damage over time builds, or any kind of ailment-based builds that maybe an Elementalist would take advantage of, chances are it's going to be a valuable item because a huge portion of the Synthesis Softcore League is playing one of those three ascendancies. Jumping in and taking a look at the hardcore meta and how things look a little bit different over on the hardcore side of things. That's where I'm playing this particular league. Occultist and Trickster still come in at the top two spots. Occultist at 24%, Trickster at 19%. But then we've got a little bit of diversity. We've actually got another layer of the meta going on here, with Inquisitor and Juggernaut actually taking the third spots respectively at 11% popularity. Then Elementalist, Necromancer, and Hierophant coming in at 7 and 4 and 4 respectively. And then of course you've got everything else: Chieftain, Gladiator, Guardian, Saboteur, Champion, and of course the never popular Slayer and Berserker presently. Who knows what 3.7 will bring? Hopefully some buffs to melee. But that's where it's looking right now. So across the board in both hardcore and softcore, people are staying away from melee for the most part. The vast majority of players are staying away. Of course, drop us a comment down below if you're not staying away from that sort of playstyle, if you're one of the risky people that's happy to take on the challenge of playing a less popular class. Maybe you're a little bit of a hipster as you're playing PoE. That's cool. That's very enjoyable. I myself am playing a Juggernaut right now and enjoying it immensely in the Hardcore Synthesis League. When we take a look at the comparison chart between the two leagues, this is just done a real quick mock-up up in Paint just to show you some of the differences. Our legend here is that if there's a blue line connecting the ascendancies, then there's no change in terms of the place of popularity. Maybe there's a change in the percentages. You can see that Occultist is only played by 24% of the league in hardcore, whereas in softcore it's played by 27% of the league. But nonetheless, they both take the top spot. Same thing for Trickster, both coming in the second spot. The yellow line means that it's more popular in softcore than in hardcore. So, for instance, the Elementalist comes in and is incredibly popular in softcore, coming in at the number 3 spot with 15% of the league playing it. Whereas in hardcore, it's only at 7% of the league playing it, which, when you think about it, yes, you can play an Elementalist in hardcore because the best defense is a good offense, but chances are at some point you're just going to explode. And a lot of people that are playing best defense is a good offense this league in hardcore are trusting to the Inquisitor with the defensive and offensive changes to consecrated ground, making it much, much more flexible for various builds like Divine Ire and Spark, those being two of the bigger ones that are being played right now by Inquisitors in hardcore. Then when you've got the red lines, you can see that it is more popular in hardcore than softcore, which it makes sense that a lot of the defensive melee ascendancies are indeed more popular in hardcore. They're not necessarily popular, right? I'm not going to say they're popular as in there's more than 7% of the league playing them, but there is some significant differences between the way how hardcore and softcore approach the present iteration of various melee ascendancies. So for instance, Gladiator is only played by 1% of the population in softcore, but it's played by 3% of the population in hardcore. So people, at least in the hardcore realm of Path of Exile, are still valuing Chieftain, Gladiator, Guardian, Champion. There's a little bit more value that's placed on those more defensive ascendancies than maybe the wheeling, dealing, free critting builds that are out there and available to more offensive ascendancies like Inquisitor or Elementalist. I'm actually surprised. That's one of my takeaways so far doing this overview, is that Inquisitor hasn't seen more play inside softcore, and it's actually taking the third top spot tied with Juggernaut. That's incredible. Juggernaut is always consistent in hardcore in terms of its popularity, but for Inquisitor to be right next to it, that's pretty amazing in terms of the numbers and numeric popularity among characters playing in hardcore versus softcore. Moving on and taking a look at the softcore passive heat map. So this is, of course, taking a look at the PoE Ninja data that is available and up to date as of the time of this video. Of course, all of these stats can change at any point in time as players shift and the meta shifts. But this is the passive heat map collected from over 16,000 different characters. You can see what the passive tree looks like in softcore, and it's very simply, it's the top half of the tree, right? Which makes sense according to the data, that people are playing Templars, people are playing Witches, and people are playing Shadows. That's what folks are mostly playing right now in softcore Synthesis League. When you take a look at the keystones and the ascendancy passives that a lot of people are playing with, it's fascinating to see how prevalent and popular acrobatics and chaos inoculation are, along with mind over matter. So when you look at the breakdown, acrobatics coming in at 28%, CI, chaos inoculation, at 26%, elemental overload takes the third spot at 26%, then wicked ward, which is of course a occultist ascendancy, at 26%, and then it takes all the way down to 24% to get to mind over matter. But basically, that's between mind over matter and chaos inoculation, 26 and 24%. That's like half of the league is playing one or the other, right? Some sort of chaos resistant, extra tanky build thanks to all of the reworks with Energy Shield, right? So Energy Shield has made a big comeback to where when you look at those numbers, it basically means 50% of the league, if not more, because there could be people who aren't taking those two nodes but are still playing some kind of hybrid. 50% of the league or more are playing CI or hybrid, which is huge when you compare it to previous leagues where Energy Shield has really fallen out of the meta, and just the availability of items to craft. Crafting has really come back strong over the last year, and Energy Shield crafting getting the most boosts really since Delve all the way now through Betrayal into Synthesis League. When you look at the active skills that people are primarily using in softcore, it looks like Winter Orb is coming in at the top spot at 15%, and then a new skill, Soul Rend, that's a chaos damage over time with, of course, the new Cats MTX that's just been released for everybody to go out and buy at 11%, and then Stormbrand coming in at 7%, Vortex, Blight, and Essence Drain. So a bunch of chaos damage is popular right now in softcore Synthesis League. Looking at hardcore and comparing the passive heat map, it does look a little bit different. This is taken from over 10,000 characters ranging between level 80 to level 100, and some of the differences to note are some of the things that are the same and some of the things that aren't, right? So mind over matter comes in at 35% of the league taking that node. Holy moly, right? When you compare softcore to hardcore, and you go from 26 to 35% of the league. That is insane, the number of players that are taking mind over matter. I don't see how mind over matter is going to sustain itself in this particular way. I think that GGG is going to look at this and it's going to get smacked. Whether or not it gets smacked in the same way that Volpact has gotten smacked, in the past, or maybe it'll just get a numbers tweak. I don't know. But just looking at that number, if that number holds throughout the entirety of the league, it's not going to be good news for anybody that wants to play Mind Over Matter in the future. And the same thing is actually true for acrobatics and phase acrobatics, because both of those are also being taken by a ton of players in hardcore. And oftentimes players have argued in hardcore, well, hardcore, you really don't want to take acrobatics and be reliant on dodge and spell dodge, because eventually you're going to roll a bad roll and you're going to get hit, and you've got to be able to deal with that in hardcore. Well, the reality is that phase acrobatics and acrobatics are so powerful right now, and they're so accessible by so many different builds that are popular, that it is totally worth going out of the way to go get. Oftentimes, a lot of builds, what they had to do when Energy Shield wasn't as popular was everybody had to make their way on the passive tree towards the Scion life wheel in order to get extra life and additional life for survivability if they were playing a build that was on the top half of the passive tree. Nowadays, if you're playing on the top half of the passive tree and you're going Energy Shield, yes, you might take a little bit of an Energy Shield nerf by going and grabbing acrobatics and phase acrobatics, but it's totally worth it. And in terms of the passive points that you have to spend to get over there, it's relatively similar to going all the way down towards the Scion tree. It's not the same. I'm not saying it's the same number of passives, but I'm saying it's relatively similar for added defensive boosts. So that's just some factors to consider. I'm not sure how Mind Over Matter and acrobatics and phase acrobatics survive for much longer with this level of popularity. I think GGG will probably take a look at these two mechanics and hit them in some way. Moving on to some summary thoughts. First off, everyone in hardcore and softcore in both economies are going to value items with Energy Shield and mana. So if you've got any kind of item that drops with a high chance to roll with a good base of Energy Shield or with mana, chances are it's going to be worth something. So those of you that are busy right now playing Bank of Exile, that's something to be aware of. Anything that drops with ES or mana is probably going to be valued, because we've got so many people that are playing Mind Over Matter and playing Energy Shield based builds. Secondly, spell crit is better and more popular than ever. This is evidenced by the high popularity with elementalists as well as inquisitors. It is crazy, crazy good. And of course, with so many different spells getting buffs and changes and numbers tweaks and just simply bonuses added on, quality of life improvements, spell crit is better and more popular than ever. So if you've got an item that's got crit multi, crit chance on it, chances are it's going to be worth something. Third takeaway is that Winter Orb is still going strong from its 3.5 buffs and changes to the Occultist to Cold and to Dot. I am shocked that Occultist is still taking the top spot. I understand that it's good. I understand that it's strong. I understand that Winter Orb specifically, Vortex specifically, are both very, very strong options. Cold Snap is very, very strong. I'm just shocked that Occultist is remaining at the top in both hardcore and softcore. That, to me, is fascinating. Again, not all of that is due to Winter Orb. Some of it is due to some of the new skills like Soul Rend and Bane, but I'm really, really intrigued that Winter Orb, even with the changes and with the nerfs coming with this patch, is still dominating and so strong. And then Stormbrand, another new skill that got introduced in 3.5 that got smacked, and it's still ridiculously strong. It's the single most popular skill in Hardcore Synthesis League. So despite its nerfs, lightning damage is still really, really strong, and the style of play is still relatively safe. Fifthly, new skills and reworks are good. They're really good. What a shock. Like Divine Ire, Bane, Soul Rend, Holy Flame, and that rework on the totem. These are all really, really good skills that are fun to play and enjoyable to interact with, that have lots of flexible options for many different diverse ascendancies to play around with. We're only a couple of weeks into the league. People really haven't started building their meme builds or even building their theoretical builds, trying out different combinations of ascendancies and new skills. So it'd be very interesting to see, as we're transitioning from the early league to the mid-league phase, what sort of changes people make and what sort of crazy new ideas and build concepts that are originated over the next few weeks. Well, what build would you recommend to other players that are looking to make another character? And what, if any, changes do you think will come to acrobatics and phase acrobatics? Am I totally off base in thinking that MOM, Mind Over Matter, and acrobatics and phase acrobatics are just so popular they're going to get nerfed? Of course, you can leave us a comment and join the conversation down below. And what build do you want to try but haven't had a chance to play yet yourself? These are our discussion topics for today's video. I always enjoy reading your comments and chatting along with each of you as we have chance to in the community. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much to all of our Patreon supporters for giving us the support that is needed for new things like headphones and microphones and webcams So thanks so much to all of our Patreon supporters. Welcome to the team if you are a new Patreon supporter. Thanks so much again for watching, everybody, and I hope that today is the day a Mirror of Calandra drops for you right after you get done watching this video.